All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is 5:02, and I'd like to call the June 22nd, 2022 regular board meeting of the Inglewood Unified School District to order. My name is Art Kuna. I'm the Associate Superintendent for the Los Angeles County Office of Education, filling in for Dr. Torres, who is currently out on a medical leave, and hopefully will be back with us soon. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with Assembly Bill 361, which amends the Ralph M. Brown Act to allow local governments to continue conducting virtual meetings. If I could please have Board Member Hammonds lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
May we all stand, please? Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammonds. Next, we will do our roll call. Ms. Zambrano, can you please take the roll?
Board President, Ms. Margaret Turner Evans. Ms. Evans.
Present.
Board Vice President, Dr. Carlos
I'm
McGee.
here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
I can hear you. Dr. McGee. She's having problems connecting. We'll come back to her. Board Member, Ms. Naomi Hammonds.
Present.
Board Member, Mr. Brandon Myers.
Present.
Board Member, Mr. Ernesto Castillo.
Present.
Dr. Art Kuna.
present.
Mr. Rafael Guzman.
Present.
Dr. Bernadette Lucas.
Present.
Ms. Shelley Evener, representing the Human Resources Division.
Present.
Please be informed that Spanish language interpretation is available during this meeting. Ofrecemos interpretación al español durante la junta.
All right, thank you, Ms. Zambrano. Moving on to item 4 of the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. I hereby adopt the agenda with no modifications. We will now move into our recognitions. And the first one is our Inglewood Unified School District Stellar Student Spotlight. And if I could please have Dr. Lucas start the recognitions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kuna. We are thrilled to recognize our valedictorians from the respective high schools this evening. As is the case, we are having our principals recognize our valedictorians tonight, starting with our assistant principal from Morningside High School, Dr. Mary Spruce.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity at this time to introduce our valedictorian over here, valedictorian at Morningside, Jacqueline Latin Barrera. She is Morningside High School's 2022 valedictorian. This stellar senior has a 4.6 GPA and has received a full scholarship to the University of California, Davis, UCD. Jacqueline will major in psychology and would like to become a therapist or a nurse. She says she wants to improve the health and mental health of people in her community, especially after the multiple traumas brought on by COVID-19 pandemic. Jacqueline says her mother is her greatest inspiration because she always encouraged her to pursue education and work hard at anything she attempts. Jacqueline has completed multiple advanced placement classes and even a college course during her time here at Morningside. She is the historian for the Morningside Club, My Sister's Keeper, which encourages female empowerment and entrepreneurship. Through this club, she has volunteered her time for the Girls Empowerment Summit and also organizing activities for senior girls. Additionally, Jacqueline is a member of the Morningside Environmental Club and the Hispanos Unidos, which celebrates and honors Latinx culture. Lastly, Jacqueline received an award for her partnership with the Bioflex program, which is a mentorship program where students learn social skills, job application skills, a participant in STEM workshop, and a paid internship. Jacqueline has this advice to share with her fellow IUSD students. To be successful, it's okay to receive help and support. However, you must meet in the middle and do your part by putting forth the effort. So it is my pleasure now to introduce to you Jacqueline. Is she here with us?
Dr. Spruce, I do not see her, but I feel honored that we've honored her. So thank you so much for reading the description of Jacqueline's background. Thank you, Dr. Spruce. We're ready for the next high school. So I would like to now introduce Dr. Saba Araya to introduce the City Honors Valedictorian.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to tell you a little bit about Edgar Diaz, one of my former students as well, as this year's valedictorian. So to start it off, Edgar Diaz is CHIP's 2022 valedictorian. He boasts an outstanding GPA of 4.69, and he has received a full scholarship to Stanford University. He will major in symbolic systems, which is a blend of computer science, psychology, and philosophy. After college, he plans on attending medical school, and he aspires to become a pediatrician. Edgar says he wants to help children because he loves how authentic and fearless they are. While at City Honors, he took El Camino College courses. He participated in the USC Board Scholars Program, the Experience Berkeley program, and he co-founded the Gears Club, which is a STEM club on our campus. He was elected student council treasurer and also is a member of the senior committee. He serves his beloved Inglewood community by tutoring younger students at local schools and his nephews. He identifies his older brother, who also is a CHIPS graduate, as his greatest inspiration. His older brother was undocumented, faced many challenges, became an American citizen, and eventually a college graduate. I'm thinking of someone else, but his brother was also a CHIPS student. Edgar says that his brother always stressed to him the importance of education as a pathway to success. He has this piece of advice to share with his fellow IUSD students. Don't let fear of the unknown stray you away from the greatness that is to come. Fear isn't your friend, but rather a burglar in disguise. Thank you for the opportunity to present our valedictorian for this year. We're very, very, very proud of Edgar Diaz.
Dr. Raya, thank you so much, Principal of City Honors. We will now move to Inglewood High to honor their valedictorian. Ms. Tate could not be with us tonight. I will read in her stead. Inglewood High School valedictorian, Brianna Posada. Brianna Posada is Inglewood High School's 2022 valedictorian. This senior has a 4.5 GPA and has received a full scholarship to the University of California, Los Angeles. Brianna has already completed 8 El Camino College classes, is on the Inglewood High School's varsity volleyball team and the academic decathlon team. At UCLA, she will major in political science and wants to become a criminal defense attorney. Brianna's inspiration for this career path has been the injustices her brothers have experienced. She says she has seen them move in and out of the judicial system for crimes they sometimes did not commit. Brianna wants to advocate for justice reform and provide fair representation for people in low-income communities. Although her brothers have inspired her, Brianna's greatest inspiration has been her 2-year-old daughter. Because Becoming a mother, her sophomore year of high school created unexpected challenges, but Brianna faced them with determination and without fear. She has stayed positive, broken barriers, and exceeded expectations. Brianna has this piece of advice to share with her fellow IUSD students. Don't settle for less. Strive for greatness. Would you kindly join me in honoring Brianna Posada for her incredible accomplishments? And if everyone would join all of us in congratulating these outstanding students who persevered through the pandemic and all the challenges that resulted from it to earn these incredible GPAs and succeed in all aspects of their academic and personal careers. So let's give it up for them one more time. Dr. Kuna, thank you for the privilege.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas. Thank you to all of our students. Board members, do we have any comments?
This is Mrs. Evans. I am so happy I included each one of these graduates in my speech at your graduation. So again, congratulations. I am so proud of these GPAs. Oh my goodness, they're just blowing me away. And all of them are they're just wonderful people. I met them all. So congratulations to all of you. And especially Brianna.
All right, thank you, board members. I know I speak for all of the board when we say we're proud of all of our scholars, and we wish them all the best as they continue their academic careers. We are very proud to have you representing Inglewood Unified School District as you move forward. So thank you. Next in our presentations, we are going to be moving to item 6A, which is the Bioflex apprenticeship presentation, and that is going to be given by Ms. Aba Ngisa. Aba, are you with us?
Good evening, Dr. Kuna. Good evening, cabinet, board members, community members. My name is Afg Requirements, president of the Inglewood Teachers Association. When we started the Bioflex program, we had only one high school participating, and it was City Honors. Board member Evans asked after that presentation, where are the other high schools? And I promised her that we were working diligently to make certain that all students in the high schools participated. This year, we had students from 3 of our high schools participating. We were really excited about that. Next year, our goal is to make certain that all 4 of our high schools have students participating in the Bioflex program. Next slide, please. There's so many people that who have and continue to play a supportive role in Bioflex, from our counselors to our district and union leadership to our administrators, and most importantly, the South Bay WID. And tonight, I'm very honored to be sharing the work of our Bioflex students and sharing the work that our Bioflex students are doing with Amelia Klawan from South Bay WID and Melissa Williams, our IUSD counselor. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Abba. So good evening, everyone. My name is Amelia Klawan. I am from the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, and I'm happy to be here speaking with you about our Bioflex program, and also happy to be joined by our Regional Affairs Manager, Chris Cagle. The Bioflex Pre-Apprenticeship and Apprenticeship Program was created by local employers to help prepare our local residents for all the great careers that are here in bioscience. And so for high school students specifically, the goal of our pre-apprenticeship program is really for them to explore the wide range of careers that are available in bioscience, since we can't pursue careers that we don't know exist. And so students, they learn from local employers during the program about the different entry-level jobs that are available here and what kind of education is required. They gain industry-recognized certificates they can add to their resume and job or college applications, and they also earn a stipend for their really hard work during the program. And we're continuing to work with all of our employer partners once they finish the program to connect all of our alumni to internships, job opportunities, and apprenticeships as they continue on their career path. And next slide. Oh, and sorry, one more thing I wanted to highlight is the certificate that they get on the slide, but before it is industry recognized by all the partners of Bioflex. Okay, sorry, next slide. And so this just gives you a high level of the 3 components of the pre-apprenticeship program, which include work readiness skills that help them get and keep a job, introductory technical skills classes and topics that they may not have been exposed to help them see what they like, and interaction with employers that can include tours, speaker panels, work experience, a variety of different things. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Abba to talk about this year's cohort. Actually, I think Melissa. Next slide.
Good evening, everyone. So here are beautiful pictures of our 2022 graduates from Inglewood High School, Morningside High School, and City Honors International Preparatory School. These students were very dedicated to this magnificent program, and they did a phenomenal job. Our goal for next year is to increase participation. And with that said, one of our takeaways from these last two cohorts is that to increase participation, we need to work together as a district to provide additional supports for our students while they're in this program. It can be quite rigorous at times, and they're essentially taking an additional course in addition to their regular school day. And so it is very important that we do provide those additional supports. For example, helping them with time management so they can juggle everything that's on their plate. Next slide. This slide, our 2021 graduates, all of these students, we're just going to give you an update. So we have Charlie Mays. We'll talk about the kids that have graduated from IUSD this year. Charlie Mays, she is a full ride to Scripps College. Mekades Dana is a full ride to UCLA. Edgar Diaz, Dr. Ryan mentioned him earlier, is a full ride to Stanford University. And John Kennedy has a full ride to the University of UC San Diego. All of these students, their GPA is just phenomenal. They're just amazing kids. And the feedback that I got from them from this program is that what they loved about it is it taught them the importance of being well-rounded and learning about new things. And they really appreciated one aspect of the Bioflex program. They learned a lot about the biomedical industry, but they also received job readiness skills. They learned how to create resumes. They practiced interviewing. This program was just phenomenal, and these students were grateful. And with that said, the next slide we have a video. We'll go a little bit more in depth on what Bioflex is all about. And in addition, we're going to get the feedback from our 2022 graduates. Next slide.
Five years ago, the Board of Supervisors adopted a countywide economic development strategy focused on community revitalization and key growth industries for new jobs. Bioscience was identified by the board as a major growth industry, and priority was given to creating a diversified workforce pipeline for youth interested in careers in the life sciences. We created Bioflex, a pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship program.
Bioflex is an employer-driven system which will provide the next generation of bioscience students an opportunity to thrive in that industry. It's a career pathway program that will allow students to get on-the-job training as well as educational information.
Bioscience and life sciences in Los Angeles is a diverse set of industries from biotech to med tech, med devices to digital health, from agriculture to aerospace, media tech, and just general high tech. What's even more exciting here is that we are building a very growing and amazingly diverse, inclusive ecosystem connecting all the dots.
Los Angeles County offers paid summer opportunities for youth between the ages of 14 to 24. This is a great way for youth to learn new skills.
What we're seeing that's so exciting as it relates to bioscience in LA is the expanding investment landscape. You can be an engineer, you can be an innovator, you can be a business person at a technology company. The possibilities are really endless, so you want to explore early what you think you might be interested in and then go from there.
Hi, my name is Ashley Figueroa. I'm an 11th grade student at Inglewood High School. And what I would like to talk about for the Bioflex program is all they have done for us. I'd like to thank all the opportunities they gave us, all the speakers who came to speak and gave us a taste of what what their jobs are about, and it made us learn about each career.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Mabamije from City Owners High School. I'm currently a junior. I am currently or was in the Bioflex apprenticeship program. I'd like to thank South Bay Web for sponsoring this program and letting me experience it. I really love this program. The Zoom meetings were well planned. I got to hear about this different workers' experience. The Bio Premier website was a gift because I got to, learn about new subjects and all this stuff. I got to learn about genetics in animals. And I'd love to thank Donovan and Roxanne for being patient with me and helping me throughout the program. And I'd like to thank Ms. Williams for encouraging me and introducing me to enter this program.
My name is Angel Lopez. I'm a junior. I go to Morningside High School. I joined the Bioflex Pre-Apprenticeship program. One of the reasons I recommend doing this program is that it can help you pick a career path, just like biology, and you can meet great people that can help you.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Renteria. I go to Inglewood High School. I'm currently a junior. I just want to thank Dr. Arong for introducing me to this program, and Donovan, who's been wonderful and replying to all the emails that I've sent him very quickly. And I also want to thank the school for allowing me to have this opportunity, and also to South Bay Web for creating this entire program. My favorite part was doing the resume. I really struggled doing resumes, and they really helped me a lot. So now, hopefully, in future events or in future job offers, it will help me.
So just want to close in saying how grateful we are at the South Bay Web for our partnership with IUSD over many years now, and how excited we are to be able to continue to offer these work-based learning opportunities for all of your K-12 students. Now that Supervisor Holly Mitchell is in office, they've given us a round of funding to work with more cohorts in Bioflex, and we're also expanding this program to include other industry sectors such as aerospace, IT, healthcare, arts, media, and entertainment, and energy. So we look forward to continuing to provide these opportunities and more to your students as we roll them out. And also want to let you know that, Bioflex is only one of the many opportunities that we are providing at this time. We have paid work experiences, we bring in guest speakers, we provide certification training programs. So we look forward to lots more things to come. On behalf of our CEO, Jan Vogel, thank you for your partnership, and look forward to continued collaboration.
Well, Amelia, I was going to thank you for the partnership, because we appreciate it too, and everything that the South Bay Web has done to provide opportunities for our students. And I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to Ms. Williams and Ms. Ngisa. There are people who speak, and then there are people who do. And you both are doers. So our kids are far better off for everything that you bring to this district. So thank you both. Board members, are there any comments that you would like to share?
I'd just like to add, thank you, Board Member Evans, for suggesting this to be utilized in the district. And I think without your leadership, seeing the need for our youth to engage in this program is beneficial. So thank you so much, Ms. Evans, for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can't get on. I can't see anything on my screen, and I don't know if I'm on or not. But it's ABBA, and I have been stressing we need to have programs like this, and we need to let the world know what we're doing. If we want to invite or get more students in our district, they need to know that we offer such things as this. And these kids are leaving here with 4.6 GPAs. That's amazing. And getting full ride scholarships. These kids are from Inglewood. The world needs to know that. We can't just keep that within our four walls in Inglewood. We need to let everybody know what our kids are doing. And, you know, it just really makes me proud of these students. They're going to be successful in spite of us anyway. But just that we had a hand in it, that they came through our doors and they're leaving our schools and they're being so successful. The world is just whatever they want it to be. It's just open to them. And I just congratulate all of our students who have participated these last couple of years. And hopefully next year we'll have even more students. These kids need to let everybody know what they did so that we can get other students to follow in their footsteps. It just really makes me proud. And thank you again, Abba. It's just wonderful that we have programs like this. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, our Bioflex team. Okay, Ms. Zambrano, was Dr. McGee able to log in?
No, not yet, no. She's having problems with her network.
Yeah, she's having some technical difficulties. So we're going to skip item 6B, and we'll have Dr. McGee present the SoCal Rock update at a future meeting. So let's move on to item 6C, which is our Universal Transition Kindergarten Plan presentation. And if I could turn it over to Dr. Lucas.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Kuna. I am so thrilled to introduce Ms. Ujima Hosea James, the Executive Director of Elementary Education. She will facilitate the presentation on Universal Transition Kindergarten as she prepares to present. I do want to thank her for her extraordinary leadership in preparing this proposal that is now being presented to the board and the community. Thank you so very much, Ms. Hosea James.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas. Greetings, Dr. Kuna, board members, cabinet, community. I'm excited, as Dr. Lucas said, to present our Universal Transitional Kindergarten Plan. Next slide, please. In this presentation, we will go over what is the UTK plan or Universal Transitional Kindergarten Plan, overview of what's our vision and mission. What does that classroom structure look like? What does the eligibility look like for students entering TK? And what are some of the goals with our teacher credentialing and curriculum? Next slide. So what is UTK? Sometimes people will say, what is Universal Trend? Well, you'll hear UTK or Universal Transitional Kindergarten. You'll see UPK. It's our 4-year-olds. What is it? What's its intention? Give our early learners foundational skills, provide social and emotional development, build confidence. So what we're trying to do is have a classroom structure for 4-year-olds where they're getting some of the components from preschool, where they're learning and socialization and play, but they're also getting those academic components that are needed to be successful throughout school, specifically that preschool through 3rd grade time where you're building those foundational skills. So it's an interactive, and children have a chance to grow academically and socially. Next slide. In Inglewood Unified School District, we're aligning our goals with what is UTK, or Universal Transitional Kinder. We want equitable access for all students, a high quality program. We want our children to be happy and laugh, and you hear them learning and enjoying being in school. Developmentally informed, meaning we're going to put structures in place where we are able to see how students are doing, give them assessments, observations, and then offer support immediately if needed, put structures in place immediately to make sure all of our students grow, and then also an inclusive environment. We want to make sure all, and when we say all, we mean all of our students, regardless of where they come to us, from where they are academically and socially, providing an environment for them to be successful. And as I said in the last slide, we're looking at the structure from preschool all the way to 3rd grade. Those are the foundation years. That's where we have our students and we give them those supports needed to make sure they're successful, independent learners throughout their school career. Next slide. So eligibility for universal TK, this year and how you, for the last maybe about 7 years, TK were 4-year-olds from September the 2nd to December the 2nd. That's when if your child turned 5 within that time frame, your child could enroll. Now they've extended it, so the cutoff is no longer December 2nd. For this 2022-23 school year, the cutoff will be February 2nd. The next year it'll be April 2nd, and then the following year. So this is a 3-year plan. It will grow to June 2nd. And so the goal is that child has the entire year to turn 5. And so it's specifically for 4-year-olds turning 5. And so this first year cutoff is now February 2nd. Next one, please. Next slide. So what will our universal TK or our TK classes look like beginning this August? In all of our K-6, K-8 schools, so all elementary campuses, K-8 campuses, we'll have a full day class, and it depends on the number of students. So it may be more than one class, but any class that has a TK student in that class has this universal TK structure. So it might be the class is all TK students, or if they have TK and kindergarten students, they have these structures. So it'd be full day, which is 8:05 to 2 o'clock. All of our sites will have the opportunity for parents to enroll there. Extended care is provided for TK students. So if a parent expresses that and we have the structure set up for this, but they need the additional care in the morning and also after school, it will be specifically for those students that are TK students. And the ratio changes. We can only have a maximum of 24 students in the class. And that structure, because it's a 12-to-1 ratio, there will be a teacher and an aide in the classroom. So that there's this 12-to-1 ratio. Next slide, please. Next slide. So our curriculum, we had a team of individuals, our teachers here at the district, our preschool teachers, our TK teachers, principals, community members. We had giving input. What are some of the things that we want to see following the guidelines, the Universal TK Plan guidelines? So we're creating an environment for the whole child approach. We want culturally relevant teaching strategies to occur throughout these classrooms, problem solving and challenging curriculum. We're going to blend the California Learning Foundations, California Preschool Curriculum Framework, and the California State Standards. And so looking at a program that will help us fulfill this goal. Currently, our TK students use our Journeys program. And so that has these foundations, but this goal for the next year will be to look at a uniform curriculum that our preschool and our TK students can be aligned. And then just using assessments to, as I said in the last slide, making sure that our students are formative assessments so we can see their progress, communicate with their parents, and assist our students with being sound learners. Next slide, please. Now, the teaching credentialing for TK teachers is changing. It's still in development from our state level. So currently next year, being in aligned how we have in the past, the principal is just will assign a multiple subject teacher, which is our elementary teachers, for that position. Throughout the next year, we're providing professional development for our teachers, and also we will inform them and help assist with either providing the information for them for the credentialing. And the credentialing is actually changing to where you have the teacher will need a multiple subject teaching credential, and some of the, I think it's up to 24, the child development permit or child development courses. And so those goals and planning out an actual structure and timeline for our teachers is what we've been working on. Next slide, please. Okay, and so our sites have already started enrolling, and school begins on the 22nd of August. We are planning TK orientations for parents to inform them of the TK structures, give them an opportunity to visit the campuses, see where their child will be learning. And so if you're interested, contact your school's the closest school, any Inglewood school to enroll. And so we're excited. We're ready to see our young scholars be successful. So that's it. Next slide, please. I'd like to say a special thank you to our cabinet, Dr. Torres, Dr. Cuna, Dr. Lucas, Dr. Stephanie, Mr. Guzman, especially to our TK committee. We have, as I said, there were members from our preschool teachers. We had principals. We have Ms. Ngisa was with our representing ITA. We had our TK teachers, after school enrichment and safety coordinator. If I missed anyone, please forgive me. I do want to say a special thank you to Dr. Susan Tamberg. She's with CCEE, and Ms. Joanna Clifton. I'm here presenting the Universal TK plan, but I feel like I'm one of three. We were all a team, Dr. Tamberg and Ms. Clifton. We worked on this plan together, and I'm just representing them. And so I'm very grateful to their hard work and their support. Yes.
All right, thank you.
I would like to take,
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Cuna. I wanted to close the presentation how I started by thanking Ms. Hosea James for her incredible leadership throughout this process. I cannot express the amount of time, energy, and research it took to create this program. This is a new program to Inglewood Unified. As Ms. Hosea James shared, we are hoping that everyone in the community sees this presentation and encourages students, children who are aged for this program to participate. This is a great kickoff to their elementary school careers, and we would like to encourage every single student who's of age to participate in this program. Thank you, Dr. Cuna.
Thank you both. Appreciate the presentation and what you all are doing for this. I know the hard work that has went into it. Also, just wanted to, show some appreciation to the state for placing an emphasis on getting to our younger students and really getting our 4-year-olds into classrooms just to support them along the way. So it's nice to see that they also, are putting some funding along with it as well. So board members, any questions or comments for the UTK team? Okay, moving on, we are going to go to our next presentation, but we will keep it with Dr. Lucas as she presents items 6D, E, and F, which are the local control accountability plans for Inglewood Unified School District, City Honors, and La Tierra. Dr. Lucas.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cuna. Once again, I'm so thrilled and honored to introduce Dr. Danielle Goolsby, Executive Director of State and Federal Programs, as she provides the update to the 2022-2023 Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP. She will be presenting for the district at large, City Honors, and La Tierra in this one presentation. We did choose to do that so that there's coherence between the presentations of the respective LCAPs because they are aligned. Dr. Goolsby.
Good evening, Dr. Cuna, Cabinet, our community members. Thank you for joining us this evening. Next slide, please. So this evening, we're going to review our LCAP goals, our current goals. We're going to look at the LCAP matrix, look at some of our expenditures and our successes and challenges. Next slide, please. So as Dr. Lucas stated, we're looking at all three of the LCAPs, the Inglewood Unified School District LCAP, La Tijera Academy of Excellence Charter, as well as City Honors International Preparatory High School. With that, the process for the LCAPs includes educational partner engagement. So all three entities had to meet with their educational partners to get feedback on any of the goals and actions within the plan, as well as review data, do data analysis, look at any data that pertains to any of the goals and actions. In addition to reviewing are the current goals or any goals that needs to be changed, and we'll talk about some changes on the district side that were not that did not actually affect the La Tijera or the City Honors LCAPs, but was just germane to the Inglewood Unified School District LCAP. And then the other part of the process is that each entity gets support. So at the district level, we have legal support where we kind of go back and forth with looking at pieces of the plan and getting feedback and kind of consultation on the best ways to either explain things or to look at how we can best utilize some of our resources. So they've been very supportive with that. The district support comes in for the school charters. We have they have an individual that sits with them and goes through every step of the LCAP, making sure that any questions that they have or any processes that they need support with, they get that support. And then finally, we bring it for board approval. Next slide. So again, all of our LCAPs are online. So for the district LCAP, there are 4 goals, but for the City Honors and La Tijera LCAPs, there are 3 goals. And then the first goal that we all have in common centers around our basic services. How are we supporting our school sites in terms of materials, the hiring of teachers, the hiring of our staff members, how we're doing instruction. All of those things are within our goal 1. Next slide, please. So within our goal 1s, we're looking at the matrix. Our matrix covers all of how are we monitoring or how are we knowing that what we're doing is correct, meaning like with our textbooks, do we have enough textbooks for all of our students? Are our textbooks up to date? Are we doing textbooks adoptions? All of that is included in our goal 1 matrix. Also, how are we doing in each one of those subject matters? Are all of the textbook adoptions for each subject happening? Is the implementation of the curriculum in each subject area happening? All of those things are reviewed in our indicators, and we'll have our indicator presentation in the next board meeting. The facilities, what are our facilities looking like? Are they in good repair? That's all reviewed. Educator equity, how are our educators dispersed throughout the district and throughout the charters, and what is the ratios? Next slide, please. And at this point, I would like to invite my counterpart, Ms. Jeanette Gomez. She's going to talk about the budget aspects of Goal 1.
Thank you, Dr. Goolsby. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeanette Gomez, the Executive Director of Fiscal Services. And so I'll be covering a little bit about our budgeted Alcap expenditures and what we're estimating that we're going to end the year at in terms of actual expenditures to date. And so we have a little column here where you can see Goal 1 and its 8 actions, along with a column that shows what we budgeted in terms of expenditures for that specific action. And then what we're estimating, again, that we will end the fiscal year at, and the funding source for that specific action. And part of the job of the business department is to work with Dr. Goolsby and her team to make sure that we are in alignment with our expenditures throughout the year. So we provide updates as to how we're doing in terms of the spending that we're doing for each goal and action. So for Goal 1, as you can see here, we are projecting that we will end the year at about 50.6 million, or 82% of Goal 1 that will be fully expended by June 30th. And this number can increase depending on if we get any additional vendor payments. And as we get closer to closing the year, we'll get more concrete numbers. But for now, we're estimating 82% of Goal 1 will be spent. Thank you.
Next slide, please. All right, well, Goal 2. Goal 2 is primarily focused on the instructional supports that are within our schools. We look at actions pertaining to, especially coming back with re-engaging our students back into school after the closures. We're looking at any type of support academically, whether it's with tutoring, bringing in additional activities like we had a big infusion of enrichment activities for students this year, which was really positive, as well as supports in the classrooms with our in the classroom supports like Hey Tutor, for example, after school supports like homework clubs, and additional intervention programs after school. All of those things were included in our goal. In our Goal 2. And then some of the other pieces was the professional development that happened with our staffs at every level, from our administrators, teachers, instructional aides throughout the year. Next slide, please. So, and looking at the matrix, we look at what is how are we doing in terms of our academic development? Now, currently, the students just completed at the end of the year the CAS assessment, which is our state level assessment for our language arts, math, and sciences for particular grades. And those scores, unfortunately, will not be in probably until later on this month or early July. However, they did take they had a beginning of the year diagnostic and an end of the year diagnostic. I am happy to say that there was growth between the beginning of the year and the end of the year. So with that, the hope is that that same growth will show also on our CAS assessment, because normally there's an indicator between our school-based assessments, our beginning of the year and the end of the year as in conjunction to our CAS assessment. So we'll see that great return. We also had a number of our students who were reclassified this year, so that also was reflected. There was growth in our Dibbles data. Now, Dibbles is an assessment that's given to our kindergarten through second grade students to measure their literacy, and there was growth in that area as well. I'm also happy to announce that we had a new cohort of GATE students that were added this year. 87 students were added to the cohort, and we have some more in the wings, some high achievers that we're going to be working on for next year as well. So they were added. We're waiting to get our data on our gradebook usage to see what that looked like from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, waiting on that report. Our unique learning system, which is a system that's specifically designed for our moderate to severe autism students, getting them, that's their curriculum, a way of making sure that they have access to the core, working on making sure that all of those students got access. That percentage slipped a little bit, but a lot of that was due to the closures throughout the school year. We had students who had to be out and had to be at home, so that kind of affected our percentages in that area. Next slide, please. Okay, and continuing with the matrix. So our A through G requirements were also looked at this year. We're still in the areas, full disclosure on a lot of the dashboard data that it was announced by the state that the dashboard would not be active again or be updated until 2023. So it kind of put all of the districts in a difficult position of trying to find what measures we're going to use to monitor a lot of the things. So we're kind of stuck with last year's, at the very least, last year's data and kind of whatever we pulled for this year. So I do have some information here for our graduation rates from last year, because the ones for this year are not out yet. So you see that the percentages that are there for the entire district. as well as our college and career awareness, career preparedness. But one thing I want to say about this particular goal, although we do not have the information from the state, what I can say is that the majority of our schools are moving to incorporate Avid on their campuses. So that's really helping us with our A through G, starting at elementary to the middle to the high. And so we're seeing some continuity between our whole district and how we're viewing college and career preparedness. So that has most definitely been an impact there. The AP examination rate is also listed. We have more students who are have been offered and who are participating in our CTE pathways. There's been an uptick in the offerings, which is great, and our students are signing up and participating. As well as we do have some of our scores that have come back from the LPAC, and there was we had some 24% of our students who moved bands from one band to another for the LPAC. And did I miss anything? No. Next slide, please. All right, I'll invite my counterpart back to share about Goal 2 expenditures.
Thank you. Again, so for Goal 2, we have the chart here that's showing the detail of all of our 16 actions along with the budgeted and estimated expenditures. And for Goal 2, we have seen a lot of success in not only meeting our original budget estimates, but we're actually exceeding those amounts. Several actions have seen an increase in expenditures as the district fully implemented the plans outlined in our Alcap. As an example, action 2.16, which is the last one on this list, more than doubled in the expenditures that we were originally budgeting. And that was because we were able to provide additional Chromebooks and hotspots for our students. So therefore, we're estimating that Goal 2 will actually end up at 124% of its original budgeted estimates. Thanks.
All right, next slide, please. All right, Goal 3. Goal 3 is looking at how we are providing that social emotional or support for our students and our families. And in this particular goal, we're looking at the supports on campus, off campus. Who are we getting to help those individuals? We've added some positions this year that have been very instrumental in supporting our families. We have our Cwa Advisors. These are individuals that are helping our families with finding resources for encouraging them to come to school and supporting them in that. We'll have fewer students who are going before what we call the SART board, where they would have to explain why they're not in school. These group of individuals have been helping families with encouraging them to re-engage in the campus. So they've been a very great addition to our team. Our community liaisons have been an excellent addition to our team in terms of helping our families, getting them to come back to campus, volunteer, be a part of our school site councils, our ELACs, as well as support with with parent workshops, grandparent workshops, all of those things our community liaisons are helping out with. Our safety assistants who are helping with pushing, helping with that component with our PBIS and helping with creating those safer environments at the school sites. All of those things are a part of this goal. Next slide, please. So in looking at that, a lot of this is dealing with re-engaging students in the campus when we're talking about our attendance data. Actually, despite the fact that we had a lot of closures in the beginning of the year, to come out with 92% daily attendance rate is actually a success in comparison to 2019. Because of the fact that the opening and closing, and the independent study, all of that, we were able to hold steady with our attendance rate. Then it shows in our chronic absenteeism rate, a lot of that deals with the COVID, people either exposed or being exposed to people who were exposed. So that had a huge impact on our chronic attendance rate. And then I see our suspension rate. Unfortunately, we got to figure out where that came from, but we'll find out what happened there. Our graduation rate, you see that from last year. We're still waiting on this year. And there's in these other areas with our middle school dropout and our high school dropout, all of that was a part of our dashboard and our CalPass, and that has not posted as of yet. But what I can say in terms of some of our data, one of the indicators for our safe school data was the fact that majority of the parents did feel, and it was 22% of strongly agreed, but the next area under that was agreed, and that was also a high percentage that they felt like the student social emotional needs were being met. So that was also a positive thing that came out of our data. Next slide, please. All right, continuing on, the next one, also looking at our how our teachers felt on campus in terms of being informed about or being engaged in decision making. So we had at least of the strongly agreed, the 18% of our teachers agreed that that was being offered to them, and the next band under that was also within the 40s. So that was good that they at least knew that the opportunities were there and were able to be a part of it. The same with the resources available on campus, that was also a high rating as well. And students feeling safe on campus. Our local indicators too, as far as building that family and partnership between our families, there was uptick in that. One of the positive things I can say that was added this year as well were we had 2 additional parent advisory groups that were added. We've had our DLAC, which was for our second language parents, but we've added the county administrators parent advisory and as well as our district parent advisory. That covers a lot of our Title I and all those activities, all those initiatives that was added as well. And then the metric that we changed from previous year to this year, we're going from the Healthy Kids Survey to the PBIS climate survey. So that was instituted for the first time this year, and our ending rates are here on the screen. Next slide, please. I'll invite my counterpart back up to share more about our data, our expenditures.
Okay, so goal 3, although we had some actions in goal 3 that were not fully implemented, we are estimating that we'll end at about 5.6 million or 85% of goal 3 to be fully expended by June 30th. And this is because the availability of the one-time funding sources such as AB 86 and ESSER funds, they allow the district to provide those additional social and emotional resources for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, now this is the goal that's brand new this year, and it's only for the district, only for the IUSD side, not for City Honors or the Latihira LCAPs. And the reason why our goal was, this goal was assigned to us, not the goal, but the intent was assigned was because our district is receiving targeted assistance from the state. And so the focus was on our special ed students. And although we have our special ed students interwoven throughout all the other goals, this goal is really doing more of a deep dive into how we are servicing our special students with our special needs students. Next slide, please. So with that, what we're looking at is there's 4 actions to this goal, and the actions are focusing on increasing the opportunities for students to be included in to have inclusive practices in our special education classes. And also, when we're looking at inclusive practices, we're not just looking at what happens inside of the special day class, we're also looking at opportunities for those students to go into the general education class. So that was formerly known as mainstreaming, where a student can go into another class and based off of their where they achieve the highest. So say the student may have had problems with language arts and math, but maybe they were really comfortable with PE, and that was an opportunity for them to socialize. They'll be mainstreamed during that. Or if the student, maybe they just had struggles in the language arts, but they actually have some pretty high skills in mathematics. They go into the classroom during math time, or they or it can be history time. But it's all talking about the inclusive practices, getting more students in the general ed setting, professional development, providing our staff, not just our special education staff, but our general education staff, on inclusive practices. What does that look like? Because if students are coming into the classroom, they need to be prepared for those students. And then with that, when do the special education teachers and when do the general education teachers get an opportunity to talk? So Goal 4.3 talks about that collaboration between both general education and the special education teams. And then finally, we're looking at the monitoring. What are we using to monitor all of these practices? Between how instruction is being implemented, how often are the teams talking, what do the IEPs look like, how the IEPs are being written, all of that is in action 4.4. Thank you. Next slide. So let's look at some of the results. So we had our LCAP results from the parents, from the students. What mattered most to the students in their data, they talked a lot about school culture and climate, teaching and learning, new programs and opportunities, social emotional supports, college and career awareness opportunities, and home to school connection. These were the themes that you saw throughout because they had multiple choice questions that pretty much were talking about in the overall about what school was like, if they're are we providing supports, or do they feel comfortable, can they talk to their teachers and their staffs. For the most part, it was overwhelmingly over 50% of the students felt that way. However, these were the themes that came out of the things that came out of the open-ended questions where they were able to share their experiences. These were the open-ended. One of the things that came out of the student surveys were that it was clear that there was students experienced our district differently based on the schools that they attended. So if you looked at all of the responses from school X, they all had a theme. If you looked at school B, they had a theme. School Y, they had a theme. But there wasn't nothing that was kind of standard throughout all of the campuses. So we did notice that there were different experiences based off of what campuses the children went to. The parents results, it was the same thing. There was a different experience based off of where their children were, but these were the themes that came out of it. They talked about emotional supports, making sure that's in place, our academic supports, teaching and learning, new programs, parent resources, and they talked about homeschool connection. And again, in the open-ended section of the surveys, you got high, mediums, and lows. You have folks who talked about their challenges and then folks who talked about the successes, but these were the themes that were mainly covered. Next slide. And then with the staff, the major themes that were covered were professional development, culture and climate, programs and implementation and supports, program implementation supports, our communication and social emotional supports, and self-care. The same thing with our staff. It was huge. There was a lot of chatter within the the survey about the types of supports that they need to address the new needs of our students. Coming back from COVID and re-engaging our students is a lot different than it was pre-COVID. And so they're asking for those types of supports to help them be the best that they can be for their students. And then on this next column where it has district action, the action item that's listed next to for example, the culture and climate, action 3.4 directly addresses the needs that our community is asking for in that action. So we made sure that all of our actions, anything that was brought up and addressed, if it was not already in the LCAP, it's there now because we want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of our community. Next slide. And Dr. Lucas, if you would join me on the successes and challenges. I want to start with a couple of successes, and I know Dr. Lucas, you want to fire off some as well. One of the things that I thought was really great, like I mentioned earlier before, all the enrichment that's been brought forth with our expanding of our VAPA programs, the other opportunities for our students. We've also expanded, making sure that our programs are there's alignment between our our plans. Dr. Lucas, would you like to speak to the alignment of our plans? Because that was a huge success for us that we use in LCAP.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goolsby. To your point, a lot of intentional time was taken by cabinet, by each division, ed services, to ensure that the strategic plan, the LCAP, that which is expected from our FCMAT standards, are coherent, so that we're all marching in one direction. We consider that a tremendous success that's showing up in our school sites and in the results and the feedback we've received from respective organizations that support us, such as FCMAT and CCEE.
And I'm gonna interwove the successes and the challenges. In talking with some of the challenges, we experience the same challenges as other districts throughout the state experience with the shortage of staff, with COVID closures, with trying to re-engage our students in the school. All of that was an impact on us this year. But despite that, we were able to get a lot accomplished. And I want to go back to the success side and beginning to set the foundations for moving our district, making a pivot in terms of bringing MTSS, starting that foundational work with our team to start MTSS for next semester, bringing up DigiCoach to make sure that we're bringing that monitoring piece for inside of the classroom, the launching of our new leader support for our administrators at every level, our central office administrators, our site administrators as well. The training of our instructional aides. Our instructional aides have been kind of neglected for a long time. So be able to bring them some support has been great, and they are ready to get to work in terms of working in the classroom and bringing all the knowledge to them. Our GATE program, we've got a great GATE committee in bringing back and bringing some opportunities to those students. Like I said, there was 87 students that were brought on board, and there's more in the wings that are waiting. We're just waiting for those test scores to come out to see how many more we can bring on board with us. The master schedules, bringing more CTE opportunities to our students, AP opportunities to our students. Those have all increased for this year. The competition, bringing back our competitions to our kids. All of this is done with our supplemental concentration funds. And so this is how the money is working. You see the advertisements through the Facebook, through our newsletter, and even in the kids' faces for all the opportunities that are coming out, and that is paid by supplemental concentration money. So I'm excited. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Lucas, about any of our success?
Sure. I share your excitement because the planning, the efforts are turning up in results for students. That's what I would like. That's what I want our headline to be. That that which we've been working on is student facing and student impacting.
And then as we speak this week, starting with our summer school programs, the summer school program is also being supported by our additional fundings, and they are focusing on project-based learning and other activities, the VAPA, STEAM, all of that. So all of that is being brought by our state and federal funds. Next slide. So with that, I want to give special thanks, of course, to our leadership, Dr. Torres, Dr. Kuna, Dr. Lucas, and Rafael Guzman. Thank you so much for supporting with the LCAP. My counterpart, Jeanette Gomez. We've been working as a team. And then in my division, Renee, I don't know what I would do without her in terms of helping with figuring out these numbers. Lourdes Hell, got to give her a huge shout out. She's my predecessor and has been my wing woman in terms of being my support throughout this process, because this is a huge process. The LCAP committee, there's none other. I've said this in another plan. The LCAP committee does a lot of work. It's not that committee, you're pulling up your sleeves, they're digging into the data, they're asking the critical questions, and it's just a great group. ITA, our Southwest SELPA. Our Southwest SELPA, we got some phenomenal folks in there that are very supportive of us. Our parent advisory groups, I call it the road show. Whenever I go see the parent advisory groups, we take this to them, they give us their feedback, and we take that and we work with it. Our survey participants, we had a lot of our families who participated in our surveys and gave us their feedback, and we use all of your feedback and we take it very seriously. We incorporate everything into all of our plans, up and down, all of the plans that have come through. Our educational services team and our business service team and our student support service team. So thank you very much.
Dr. Goolsbee,
Sorry, go ahead.
Dr. Goolsbee, thank you so much for this incredibly comprehensive presentation. I know that we took some time, but the LCAP is a foundational plan for the district. I do want to emphasize to the community, our LCAP is an organic living document that we monitor over time as it impacts students. We are very serious about that. So taking this time tonight was important because the LCAP is one of the axes that our world, the IUSD world, revolves around. So thank you so much to everyone who worked very, very hard on this. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to Dr. Kuna.
Thank you, Dr. Lucas, and thank you, Dr. Goolsbee. I know how much work and effort you put into this along with your team. So I do appreciate it. I am hoping, I think one of the things that, people will notice is that a lot of our supports for students come with people. And if we cannot staff, then we can't meet the requirement, the spending projections for some of those action items. And so I'm hoping that it will be better this year. We're already starting to see some of those improvements, but hopefully it will improve and we'll be able to get support for our students and even our staff, to provide professional development training so that we can get subs in the classroom to support our staff with PDs. So thank you again for all of your work, and thank you, Jeanette, with your support, because this is really a hand-in-hand project, right? Like so much of LCAP revolves around what we do for students, and so much of what we do requires us to spend money and account for it. So thank you, Jeanette, for doing all of the accounting and making sure we are doing what we should be doing with the expenditures. So board members, are there any comments or questions that you have for our LCAP team?
I have some comments. I don't know if it was my computer or what, my internet, but every time you showed something that had something to do with money, my screen would blur. I didn't know if that was done purposely or what, but I couldn't. That's why I have glasses on now, because I couldn't see what was on the screen, but I heard you talking. But I just know that a lot of work has been put into this, and I can tell from what Dr. Goolsbee and Dr. Lucas has said about all the people who are involved in the LCAP for all of our schools, but for these two schools especially. But I can't wait to see what the results will show when we get the reports, the final reports in, because this has been shortages, staff shortages, COVID shortages, COVID problems, but looks like we've made it through this year, and we've put a lot of work into all of this. And I want to thank you for all the hard work, but I still am interested to see how did we do. So when those reports come out, I'll be looking forward to those reports at one of our board meetings so that we can see just where we stand as far as improvements. You said there were improvements made in spite of all of the difficulties that we had. And I want to see the changes. I want to see that we have improved. I want it in writing. I want the public to see all the hard work that we are doing so that we can get to those improvements. So thank you very much for this very comprehensive report. Board members, do you have anything else? Thank you, Dr.
I
Kuna.
just want to echo that, President Evans. This is Dr. McGee. I think I had worse technical difficulties than you did, but I just want to echo what you said. Kudos to the team. I know they work hard. I know the individuals personally, and I know their dedication. So I just want to echo your sentiments that we're doing the work despite all of the challenges. And so kudos to the team that put this report together. It was very comprehensive. And I'm like you, I'm waiting to see how our hard work has panned out in terms of what the results are going to look like. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, board members, and welcome, Dr. McGee. We're glad you were able to join us. Next up, we have Mr. Guzman, who is going to be presenting item 6G, which is the proposed 2022-23 budget. Mr. Guzman.
Thank you, Dr. Kuna, for the opportunity to present today. And thank you as well to our wonderful community, our board members. Thank you so much for this opportunity to present today the 22-23 proposed budget. Next slide, please. So before we begin covering everything, I want to make sure to go over these very important key terms here, especially as we talk about budget. ADA being a very important term. Essentially, when we talk about ADA, it means that equal to the average number of pupils actually attending classes. So your enrollment could be 10,000 students, but if none of them attend the class, we don't receive funding for those students. And so that's, ADA is actual recording of the attendance. So we're funded based off of ADA. So it's really important that we pay attention to items like our average daily attendance. The next item here is cash flow report. One of the things we want to monitor is our cash flow on a monthly basis, and we will have a presentation next week when we, again, adopt the budget next week. So you'll see the cash flow report there as well. And then COLA. COLA is really important to understand. It's an increase in funding, including the LCFF target calculation and categorical programs. So I will be reviewing the increases in COLA that we experienced here for the next year's budget. LCFF, or the local control funding formula, this is our largest source of revenue, and it's a multi-part formula to calculate the district's principal apportionment. By principal apportionment, we mean the main source of funding that the district receives. So of all of the different funding sources that the district gets, LCFF is the one that comes from the state, and it's perhaps our most important, it is our most important source of funding. And finally, multi-year financial projections. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And essentially, those are financial projections for the current and 2 subsequent fiscal years. In order to file a positive certification in our interim reports, we have to show that we're able to meet our financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent fiscal years. Just want to clarify, though, that a multi-year financial projection is not something that should be looked at as, okay, did we hit the mark, to the dollar, to the penny. It is essentially a projection, and factors can change pretty drastically and pretty quickly, which is why we have interim reports, and we have to consistently look at our assumptions, make sure they're up to date, and make sure that we're constantly revising those assumptions in our multi-year financial projections so that we have an accurate picture of what our future looks like. If we don't do that, then we run the risk of under or over budgeting future expenses, and that could create very negative things for the district. So it's really important that we look at MYPs as tools for planning. Next slide, please. So our agenda today, we'll be looking at the budget financial reporting cycle, our legal requirements, 45-day budget revision, major assumptions, the multi-year financial projections, and reserves. We'll also have an RIU disclosure, a fiscal stabilization plan, and next steps. Next slide, please. So I'd like to present this slide so that we're all sort of understanding where we are in the big picture of school finance and the financial reporting cycle. It's a never-ending cycle. The work never stops in the business office, and we're constantly revising and updating and budgeting and estimating. And so we're always in this circle of financial reporting. So right now, as you can see, we're in the month of June, and we're about ready next week to adopt our LCAP. And then after we adopt our LCAP, we adopt our budget in that same board meeting for fiscal year 22-23. And then in July, we begin our year-end closing process for the previous fiscal year. And then in September, we present our unaudited actuals, and then we present our interim reports, and the cycle keeps going and going and going. And so we have to, at each one of those interim report periods, we present a new MYP with the new assumptions based on what's going on with the state, what's going on locally, local factors, external factors as well. We look at all of these things, and we revise our multi-year financial projections to see, are we in the mark? Do we need to adjust things? Do we need to make any sort of revisions? And that's why we have those interim reports in between the adoption of the budget and the closing of the books. So next slide, please. So why are we here today in regards to the public hearing? According to Ed Code 42-127, it says that a district has to, on or before July 1st of each year, the governing board of each school district shall hold a public hearing in accordance with Ed Code 42-103 on the budget to be adopted for the subsequent fiscal year. And number two, the budget to be adopted shall be prepared in accordance with Ed Code 42126. So what we're doing today is making sure that we are adhering to this requirement. This is a legal requirement that we have a public hearing, that we propose a budget. And then what happens next is next week, we're actually going to adopt the budget. That's why you don't see an action item in our agenda to adopt a budget, because first we have to have a hearing that presents the budget, and then from there, we're able to adopt the budget in a subsequent meeting. But all of that has to happen on or before July 1st. Next slide, please. So the 45-day budget revision is something else that we will need to be considering this year. The 22-23 California State Budget Act has not been signed yet prior to the creation of the district's adopted budget. So it has not been determined, it hasn't been signed. So there's a lot of changes. In fact, we're hearing a lot of different changes that can be, that will happen to our budget based upon what is negotiated between the legislature and the governor's office. So once they actually adopt the budget, then they have trailer bill language that clarifies what was adopted. And then from there, the district, if there's a major revision, is highly recommended to file a 45-day budget revision. So essentially what it means is this: we have a set of assumptions today of what we think will happen. The governor and the legislator will negotiate and determine a final budget. Once we know what will actually be the assumptions, then we come back and update our budget with the revised assumptions if they're substantial enough. If they're inconsequential, then that there's probably not a need for it. But in this case, we hear that there will be some significant additions that could happen potentially. And if that does happen, we will need to file a 45-day budget revision on our August 10th board meeting. So it's not that, oh, hey, we messed something up. No, it's that we have a difference in regards to what we are looking at assumptions today versus what was actually adopted at the state level. Next slide, please. So as we look at some of our major assumptions, talking about assumptions, we can see our enrollment trends here. And as you can see, I tried to include as far back as 10 years. If we look at fiscal year 12-13, our enrollment was about 12,000 students. And today, our projection for next year's enrollment is 7,200 students. That's a pretty drastic drop in the past 10 years. And as you can see, it continues to drop. And so while the district is doing everything it can and will continue to do major activities to try to curb some of this decline in enrollment, some of this is just natural declining enrollment. We're not the only district in the state of California that's experiencing declining enrollment. Many districts are. In fact, it's a very, very big problem across the state. But we have to make sure that we budget as though it's, with those things in mind, with actual data of where we think this enrollment is going to go. So next year, we anticipate enrollment to be at 7,270 in 22-23. Then we feel that it will drop to 6,900 in 23-24, and then 6,700 in 24-25. When we do our first interim report, we will have data where we can actually see where enrollment ended or where enrollment ended for 21-22, and also where enrollment is as far as 22-23. And when that happens, we will revise our assumptions again based upon the trend that we're seeing. So if we didn't have as much enrollment, we'll probably have to revise that down. Or if we had a higher enrollment, we might have to make adjustments. So that's where I'm saying we're constantly making adjustments to our multi-year financial projections. Next slide, please. So as we look at some other major assumptions, as you can see here, this came straight from School Services of California's dartboard, sorry. And this is the assumptions thus far, according to the governor's May revision. So in the May revision that some of you attended, you saw that COLA was increased for the 22-23 fiscal year to go to 6.56%. And so our assumptions are reflecting the changes in COLA that the May revision anticipated. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we are clear about. We did incorporate those changes. We also incorporated the change where the governor is allowing for the previous 3 years of ADA average. So we incorporated that as well. But what we did not incorporate was the governor had mentioned that we would be able to use our fiscal year 1920 ADA percentage and apply it to 22-23, that has not been, I'm sorry, to 21-22, that has not been approved yet. So we did not incorporate that in our assumptions. And in fact, we are constantly in contact with LACO about what's the best assumptions to include. And they actually recommended to not include that assumption until we know for sure that it is approved. But what we did include was the higher COLA percentages and the add-on, the additional LCFF investment that the governor made that was in around $2.1 billion statewide. Next slide, please. So here are some other major assumptions. I know there's a bunch of numbers here, but I'll go over the more important ones. Again, you can see the COLA assumptions there at the top. The STRS rate are in accordance with what we had in the dashboard, as well as the PERS rates. Our certificated staff step and column, we're projecting at about 2%. Our classified staff step and column, we're projecting at about 1.27%. Step and column, for those of you that like to know what that means, is essentially if you're an employee in year 10, right? You're going to move up a step to year 11. But with that movement, usually your salary will go up. So we have to budget for that step movement. And also you have column movement. So you might have a bachelor's and then you went out, you got your master's, that might move you to the next column. So on average, we're seeing just having employees that stay with the district, essentially, what is that increase? We're looking at about 2% as far as what we're budgeting. And same for classified staff, step and column, step is 1.27%. We're also looking at about an 8% increase in health and welfare for the out years. We actually experienced a pretty significant health and welfare increase for our 22-23 fiscal year of about 13%. And then our workers' comp rate, we have it flat at about 4.4%, but at first interim, we might have to revise that number based on what we see in our workers' compensation actuarials. So next slide, please. So here's a summary of our 22-23 proposed budget. And as you can see here, in the far right column, our total revenues are about $174 million. A lot of that, I just want to clarify, is from one-time dollars, essentially ESSER dollars and ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars. So it's really important to note that. And our total expenses are about $178 million, meaning that we're deficit spending all in all about $4.3 million. But our ending fund balance is at about $55.1 million. So it's still a good ending fund balance. Next slide, please. So in regards to our multi-year projection and reserves, I wanted to present that kind of combined. So we're looking at 3 years worth of data here. And in 22-23, as you can see, our combined net differences that we're deficit spending across all 3 years. This in 22-23, it's about 4.3 million, 23-24, 289,000, and 24-25 is when we're seeing an uptick in a higher deficit spending. So I just wanted to clarify that, but we do meet our reserve for economic uncertainties, and we do have commitments now. The law now requires districts to commit funds, and so we're making sure to commit those funds. But we are meeting our reserve for economic uncertainties across all 3 years. Next slide, please. Now I want to address our unrestricted side, which is a very important, the way that we receive funding, the unrestricted side is one that you really want to pay a close attention to. So as you can see in 22-23, in the net difference column, we're looking at about 6.3 million in deficit spending. I just want to clarify that about 5.7 million of that is our S&C carryover. So we have to budget that expense in the budget. And so that's why you're seeing a substantial, some substantial deficit spending there. A lot of that is because we have to spend down our supplemental concentration carryover from 21-22. So it's kind of like artificially being inflated there. When you're looking at it just on its face, if you remove that, you're looking at much less than 6.3. Just if you take away 5.7 million from that. But as you can see, we've committed 13.5 million in funds, and we've assigned 11.9. Our reserve for economic uncertainty is about 5.5 million, and we meet our reserve for economic uncertainties. In the second year, we see that our deficit spending kind of winds down. It's about 500,000. Now, if there's a carryover next year as well for S&C, and we don't spend all our S&C dollars, you're going to see again a higher deficit spending in 23-24. So just want to make sure that everyone's kind of starts getting used to starting to see some deficit spending, even if you're really not in certain years, because of the fact that you have a carryover now that you have to now spend. and you're not really getting revenue, right? So you're just spending from a reserve, and so that's why it's showing that. But in 24-25, we start seeing higher deficit spending, and I want to address that really quickly. The reason why we're seeing such a higher deficit spending in that year is because of the way that the funding has changed. So now we're funded in the previous 3 years ADA. So we get the average of the ADA of the previous 3 years. And in 22-23 and 23-24, we're still getting the benefit of the ADA that we received in 21-22. So it's benefiting 22-23, it's benefiting 23-24. But in 24-25, that's the first year where we start seeing almost none of that benefit from the ADA that we actually got in that previous year. What I'm speaking about is just a little bit of history. We received some additional ADA where we received ADA for charters that closed. Now that's kind of inflating our average a little bit, but essentially in 24-25, that's when we start seeing that a pretty steep drop, because now that's not there anymore. And now we're actually just being funded on actuals of 21-22, 22-23, and 23-24. So it's going to be very important that the district addresses the fiscal stabilization plan and updates it and to a more robust plan as we get closer to 24-25 to ensure we maintain fiscal solvency. But as you can see, even with that deficit spending, we still have commitments of about 12 million, 6 million assigned, and reserve for economic uncertainties is met as well. So it's really important, though, that we keep a close eye on this, especially as we look at the out years. Next slide, please. So this is, I'm not sure the board has seen this before, but this is the Reserve for Economic Uncertainties disclosure. In the past, this was something that was recommended, and we decided to include this because of the way that GASB 54 has asked for some of these changes. And so essentially here, we just have to disclose if we have assigned fund balances or unassigned fund balances. And so we've actually included that here. And then we have to explain why. And essentially the explanation is pretty much the same for each year, that the district is currently in a path to fiscal recovery, but still needs to make significant adjustments. So we have to have a reserve that allows us to make those adjustments with time. And if we don't make the adjustments and we dip into the reserve, it may lead into fiscal insolvency. So it's really important that we have a reserve and that we address the deficit spending that's going to happen in future years. But having a reserve is extremely important right now, especially as the district is at crossroads with addressing some of the ongoing deficit spending that it'll see. And essentially the assigned amounts also help protect the district from volatility or unbudgeted increases in PERS, STIRS, workers' compensation, and other benefits, as well as other unexpected or unbudgeted general fund expenditures. Next slide, please. Now, here's the fiscal stabilization plan. As you can see, we've actually done a couple of things for the 22-23 fiscal year with reduction in overtime and some other items there that you could identify. The bigger item here is the joint occupancy agreement that was included in the projections. And then in 23-24, we also have fiscal stabilization plan items. Again, these are plans. And so as you can see there are quite a bit of different ideas and plans for the district. And finally, in 24-25, we also have addressed some recommendations there for fiscal stabilization. This is a requirement that we look at it on at every major interim reporting period. You might see an updated one at the 45-day budget revision. If not, for sure, you will see an updated one at the first interim report. But it's important that we continue to adhere to the fiscal stabilization plan, but as well, we should probably continue to increase that. And as factors change, if COLA just skyrockets for some reason next year too, then we might be able to make different assumption changes, right? But the opposite could happen as well. Like, what if COLA drops? And that actually happened about 2 years ago, right? Where supposedly people were saying it was going to be a negative COLA, and then it was a zero COLA, and things like that. So you want to be able to constantly adjust this plan based on the best set of assumptions you have at that point in time. Next slide, please. So what are our next steps? Well, the approval of the adopted budget on June 29th, which is coming up next week on Wednesday. Again, please, I just wanted to verify or make clear that you can expect some major revisions at the 45-day budget revise due to the many assumption changes that are being discussed at the state level. So most likely you will see a 45-day budget revision. If it doesn't happen, then they didn't make substantial revisions, then you won't. But if it does, you will see those changes there. We have to continue to update the fiscal stabilization plan. We have to continuously monitor and update the plan to ensure the district's long-term fiscal solvency. You have to remember that with the school district, there's regulations, there's things that you have to do with time that you can't just do from one day to the next. You have to plan these things out with sufficient time. If you don't do it that way, then you set yourself up for failure and fiscal insolvency. So we have to have some long-term fiscal solvency planning to ensure that we maintain long-term fiscal stability. And that's something that we have to continue to look at through our fiscal stabilization plan and through our multi-year financial projections. We also have to carefully monitor ESSER expenses and ensure that these funds are spent by the established timelines, and begin to focus on year-end closing and carefully monitor changes in enrollment. So those are very important items. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to say thank you to our business team, especially Ms. Jeanette Gomez, our Senior Executive Director of Fiscal Services. Thank you so much for all of your work on the budget and helping with getting all of this together and the assumptions. And I mean, we spent a lot of long nights and weekends getting all of this together. So just want to say thank you for what you did, and as well as all of our business team that worked hard. Everyone had a very important integral portion of this. I also want to thank Dr. Stephanie and his support with staffing and making sure we had everything in line there, and the HR department's great work in getting us the items that we needed, as well as Dr. Lucas and her Ed Services team for making sure that we got our principals their budgets and that they gave us their budgets, and that we were able to coordinate all of that together to make something that's clean and understandable. So thank you, Dr. Lucas. Thank you to all our principals. And of course to Dr. Kuna, who I called probably 100 times in the past week, just asking him, hey, what should we do here? What should we do that? So thank you, Dr. Kuna, for your leadership and your direction. And I just want to say, it was a lot of work, but we're very proud of where the district is heading and where we're positioning ourselves now. And lastly, of course, thank you to Dr. Williams, our new CBO, who will continue to do a great job here as we transition. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Guzman, and your entire team. This is really an interesting year, right? Because most of the time, the assumptions are pretty close to what the governor signs in June. And I feel like we are going to have some significant changes, which is good. We hear that it's going to be good, but I appreciate you cautioning us with regards to the deficit spending and the possibility of changes down the road. I think we all can see what's happening with the economy, both at the state level and at the national level. And these things impact school funding. At some point or another, those things will trickle school district funding, which I think is going to impact our budget in the future. And when you see that even with the fiscal stabilization plan and the cuts that we've proposed in 23-24, we're still looking at a $7 million deficit spending model. We are going to have to address that and continue to make cuts to make sure that this district stays solvent and viable. So thank you, Mr. Guzman. Board members, any comments or questions for Mr. Guzman?
Well, Mr. Guzman, you made it simple again, and I thank you for doing that and explaining before you get started with all the terms that you're using. It makes it easier to follow. But as Mr. Kuna said, we have more things to look at that are coming down the road. We want to make sure that we are fiscally solvent, and there are going to be some people who won't be happy, and we know this, but we have to do what we have to do. So thank you for making it very clear to us. And I was keeping up with the figures again. This time I had my glasses on and I could see your figures. But it shows that you guys are really working. Everybody's working hard. And now I'm really feeling guilty for not doing what I'm supposed to be doing tonight. But thank you so much for all the hard work that you all put in.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Any of our other board members with any comments or questions?
I have a question regarding our modernization efforts and inflation. How much are we preparing for the changes of prices for materials that we might need for our schools in our budget?
That's an excellent question, Mr. Castillo. And you talked about two different things there: the infrastructure and construction, modernization, and then as well as regular school supplies. In the context of modernization and construction, I'm actually very glad you brought that up because we're very excited about a meeting we will be having for our Inglewood High School modernization. I'm sure you've all seen the flyer by now, and we're really excited about that. But basically, as you mentioned, we are seeing increases in estimations for raw materials and items needed for construction. So we are seeing that, but I think we're in a good spot right now because we're in the development stage of Measure I and just making sure that we how we're allocating those funds and so in that process, it's better that we can actually estimate based on the current trends of the economy. So with the help of our architect for Inglewood High School specifically, which is Gonzalez Goodell Architects, they also help us with costing those things out and making sure that we get the best estimates possible. But ultimately with school districts, the way it works is once you have a larger project above the bid limit threshold, you have to go out to bid. And then the district has to go with the lowest responsive bidder. So that usually helps the district with navigating those waters. And then we have our architect that's going to help us keep everything in line, as well as Cordoba and the business department team. We're making sure that the figures make sense and that nothing is being way over budgeted. So we're looking at that. In the context of supplies and materials for schools, we've added some CPI increases. CPI means the Consumer Price Index. So we've increased some of those supplies by that rate in the hopes that it stays with CPI. So we've incorporated some of those assumptions there with what we know CPI to be, but we are addressing those concerns.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Guzman. This will lead us to our next item, which is the public hearing. At this time, members of the community who desire to address the county administrator and Board of Education may speak on any items listed on the public hearing section. I will read those public hearing items. Number one, proposed 2022-23 local control and accountability plan for Inglewood Unified School District. Number two, proposed 2022-23 local control and accountability plan for City Honors International Preparatory High School. Number three, proposed 2022-23 local control and accountability plan for La Tierra Academy of Excellence. And number four, the proposed 2022-23 budget. At this time, the public hearing is opened at 6:44 p.m. Ms. Zambrano, we can now hear public comments. Do we have anybody who is submitted for public comment on the items listed?
Yes, Dr. Kuna. Tonight we have one public comment for public hearing. The public comment is from Mr. John Hughes. Mr. Hughes, please raise your hands for our IT department to designate you as a speaker for public comment. Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes, can you unmute yourself? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, great. You have 3 minutes. You may begin with your public comment for the public hearing.
Okay, yeah, so I will be commenting on all of the items. We'll start with the LCAP as presented. I believe the total budget was $163 million and $112 million. City Honors and La Tierra being presented separately. And the reasons, I guess, that they are separate is because one is a dependent charter and the other one, as a result, also was a charter high school originally. When we look at the spending or the total spending, a lot of areas were covered regarding where money is spent. I don't see that in special education. I see that it had a $23 million and a $17 million actual spending, which was significant. Reflected in the presentation, where they talked about educator equity. However, I didn't hear anything about leadership. leadership equity, which means leaders that are qualified to lead schools, which have an impact on the efficiency. Moving down to the other areas, such as the budget and reserves that were spoke of, which are necessary. But I hear an overall idea or concept that somehow you're going to cut your way out of receivership, and that's not possible. I didn't hear any proactive things in terms of how the district is addressing the decline in enrollment. And there's an issue that I'll speak to later regarding the committees that's on the agenda tonight. So when we're doing these plannings, we must factor in other unexpected costs. In special education, of course, there are litigation costs. And as the hardest working and I think the most unsupported area overall in this district, we recognize that those things may occur because of a lack of staffing and flexibility in terms of executing. So when we look at all of this, our whole thing should be what is the most efficient plan forward? Not simply how we're spending on technology, not simply how we're effecting our various education program, but what's the most efficient way of doing that? They spoke of collaborations between teachers, general ed, special ed, and parents. However, the parents and the students seem to understand that it's mostly social emotional support and cultural climate that's lacking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. You may now lower your hand. Dr. Kuna, that concludes the public comments for tonight for public hearing.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Mr. Hughes, for your comments. And Ms. Zambrano. Okay, having concluded public comment, the public hearing is now closed at 6:48 p.m. Next, we will move on to item 8, which is public comments on agendized items. The county administrator and the Board of Education welcome input from the public. Speakers wishing to address the county administrator and the board on agenda and non-agenda topics must complete the public comment submission form prior to the county administrator commencing the public comment period under agenda item 8. Written comments submitted to the county administrator and board will no longer be read aloud by staff during the public comment or the board public comment period. Instead, written comments will be provided to the county administrator and to the Board of Education for their consideration. The submission form is available on the district's website at www.inglewoodusd.com. 3 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 30 minutes for public comment on agenda items and a maximum of 30 minutes for public comment on non-agenda items will be allotted during the public comment period. If the public comment cards exceed 10 cards per section, the county administrator may reduce the time allowed from 3 minutes to either 2 or 1 minute per person to hear from more speakers. The guidelines for public comment will be in accordance with Board Bylaws 9323. 8A, public comment on agenda items, and 8B, public comment on non-agenda items. Ms. Zambrano, do we have any public comments on agenda or non-agenda items?
Yes, we do, Dr. Kuna. We have public comments on both agenda and non-agenda. We're going to start with the agenda items first. The first public comment is from Cheryl Matthews. Mrs. Matthews, please raise your hands so our IT department can designate you as a speaker for public comment. Thank you. Can you please unmute yourself? Can you hear us, Mrs. Matthews?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we could hear you. Thank you. You have 3 minutes. You may begin with your public comment for agenda item.
All right, good evening. Good evening, everyone. I am a community activist, basically, in response to Morningside Park and the closure of the Warren Lane School. We understand that Warren Lane has been closed. We realize that there have been changes across the country, but we would like to reopen as Daniel Freeman, offering some of the wonderful high-performing student eligibility classes, the pre-K, the programs for financial literacy, other programs that we can offer to our students in an after-school basis, especially our junior high and high school students in our district. We know that our district is safe. We know that we have a wonderful location. We know that it is a prize location. AB 1912 has passed the Senate Education Committee with the state, and we're looking for it to pass. We'd like to be able to reach back and use those same certification processes and those same analysis processes in order to make sure that we're doing what we need to do for 90305. Our department and our district and our area should not be left without a school. So we want to be involved with the committees. We want to be involved with not just for our area, but for the district-wide committees. And like the Bioflex program, that universal TK, as I said, we have an opportunity here to make high-performing students in our city of champions. We have the kids, we have the ability. We need to be able to utilize the properties that we have in order to have an acceptable use program. And I just think that reopening as Daniel Freeman and pushing forth so many of these wonderful programs into that school location would be a wonderful way to utilize that property. Again, AB 1912 has passed the Senate Education Committee. We are looking for it to go all the way through, and I'm glad because that will have some transparency and allow that the community at large, not just the school district, but the community at large would be able to participate in what happens with our schools in the proposed communities and in the upcoming future. And I really think that this is a good opportunity for our district to look back, reopen Daniel Freeman, and utilize that property properly with a pre-K, a K through 6, and also an after-school program for our junior high and high school children. And I think this is what we should do. And I think the community would be behind it. It would build back and rebuild some of the trust that has been destroyed over the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. You may now lower your hand. Please lower your hand. Our second public comment for agenda items is from Wilson McKee. Mr. McKee, can you please raise your hand so our IT department can designate you as a speaker for public comment? Thank you, Mr. McKee. Can you please unmute yourself? Can you hear me?
Yeah, Wilson McKee. I've been a math teacher at Morningside High School for the past 16 years. I've also been a project lead the way engineering, design, and development instructor, robotics coach after school for the last 5 or 6 years. And the good news is I'm officially retiring. I'll be 65 in September, and unfortunately, my mental acuity is lacking a little bit. I'm seeing some downgrading on that, and arthritis is coming up. It's sort of time for me to go. The bad news is when I was checked in with HR last week of how to go ahead and start with the retirement paperwork, I was in touch with payroll, and they told me I only had about 50 sick days when I should have about 140. And a young lady, Melissa Rendon, said she would be checking on it the next week. Like I said, this was close to a month ago. I've made multiple emails. I stopped in person, and I have not received any reply. I stepped in today in person, and I found out from another employee that she was actually on medical leave. So I guess that's why I wasn't getting any notice, but it's still, somebody could have sent an email to me, say, hey, someone is working on your account. I don't know. No one's been working on it. It's sort of frustrating where no one is keeping me informed. And, I would sort of like to get my pension numbers correct so I can retire in peace. Now, the second item is, what was that? Back there in the 2019-2020 school year, when we were online, I had 54 students in one of my geometry classes. I was teaching online for approximately 6-7 months, and I had 45 students in another online class. And I have sent so many emails in the last 18 months. with the new administration, it was last September, to Mr. Stephanie, going like, "Hey, am I ever gonna get compensated for these huge classes I had to have?" And I'm not hearing anything back on that. Well, excuse me. Mr. Stephanie did reply to my email about an hour and a half ago during this meeting that they were looking into it, and I'm not the only person, so I have to sort of just hang in there and wait. Even though, yeah, I've been waiting over here for like a year and a half. So I'm glad I finally got a reply from somebody. More good news is one person at HR named Audrey Velasco. I was going to have to go into COBRA because I'm not 65 till September, but she sent me an email just a day or two ago that says the district's extending my insurance until September 1st. And I thank her and I thank you guys for letting me be retire here. Peace.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Can you please lower your hand now? And our last public comment for agenda items is from Mr. John Hughes. Mr. Hughes, please raise your hands for IT department could designate you as a speaker for public comment. Mr. Hughes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great, you have 3 minutes. You may begin with your public comment.
Okay, I was going to speak on the resolution number 55 for establishing an asset management advisory committee. I just would like to, first of all, state that I feel that this is a continuation of the process of trying to clean up a process that has been totally non-transparent, that has manipulated the community with the closure committee, as we heard from the chairman of the committee regarding the process. I believe that these committees have been controlled. They have been constructed by attorneys that represent the district, not collaboratively with the community. And community engagement is not dictating parameters and constraints so that the outcome is directed in the direction that has been preconceived. True collaboration means that collaboration, it is an equal basis as the school site councils normally are ran, except we're finding out that that's not the case as well, with problems with the application of equity in school site councils. So where is the community going to gain the trust that I believe Ms. Matthews talked about? To gain trust, trust is the basis of all relationships. And to have a relationship with this community, there must be trust established. And right now, this process is no guarantees that it's not a continuation with a checking of a box that to be later used as some sort of rubber stamp for a community engagement that's not genuine. When we look at what has taken place with SIPSAs, which are the school site council contribution towards the school plan for student achievement, if the community was never engaged in SIPSAs, and I know it happened at Warren Lane, the school being closed, then what has been submitted is not genuine because it didn't come from the community. So we can't overlook these things, and we cannot continue to move forward as if that's just water under the bridge and we have never made these corrections. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing the same way and expecting different results. So if we as a community, we want different results. We want accountability. We want transparency. We actually want decision-making power return. And that's only going to happen when we actually tackle the problems that face this community. And that is not going to happen as we go along just to get along, which has been the practice. So we are just asking for an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. You may now lower your hand. We are now going to transition to non-agenda items for public comments. So we have 5 public comments for non-agenda items. The first public comment is from Mr. Taj Powell. Mr. Powell, please raise your hands so our IT department can designate you as a speaker for public comments. Mr. Powell, can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself, please, Mr. Powell? Thank you. Can you please unmute yourself? Can you hear us? Mr. Powell? I see him here. He's probably having issues connecting. We'll come back to you, Mr. Powell. We'll move on to the second public comment. It's from Cheryl Matthews. Mrs. Matthews, please raise your hands for IT department could designate you as a speaker for public comments. Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. Can you unmute yourself? Can you hear us?
Yes, good evening. Again, I guess we're all reiterating the same facts, and those facts seem to be that the level of transparency and the level of participation of this community as a whole has not happened. It seems that maybe there's been some things that have been sent out to parents. Maybe, I'm not even sure about that, because when I go around the neighborhood, it seems that parents aren't really aware about the things that are happening. A lot of people thought that Warren Lane was already closed. And I know that the board may be tired of hearing about this, but we as a community have to stand together in solidarity to make sure that our children and the bonds that we're paying for and the monies that we have on our taxes are being addressed to our community also. So again, I'm going to let everyone know that AB 1912, you can check it out. That has passed the Senate Education Committee. It is on its way to the appropriation committees, and I'm pretty sure it's going to pass. That is going to give a voice and an opportunity for communities at large in the state of California, particularly Inglewood was earmarked and notified as one of those entities or one of those counties, along with Monterey, Oakland, and a couple others. So we need to stay on top of this as a community. We need to stay on top of this, and we have to be able to trust that our school board and LACO and the entire operation is operating in our best interest. Again, AB 1912 has passed. The Senate Education Committee, that is big. That is huge for anyone that's been following what's been happening with school closures. And because we have not been able to get transparency from Ms. Torres, I won't besmirch her in her absence, but I really wanted to make sure that we're able to move some of these items that we are bringing up into these meetings that we're having. We keep vocalizing and making sure that things are said, but nothing gets on the agendas. Nothing is set apart or set aside so that the board as a whole can respond. It's like, oh, well, the Brown Act says we can't say anything. That's not what the Brown Act says. That's not what the Brown Act does. And so we need to be able to get some responses from our board and from the from LACO regarding some of these things that, you know, Ms. Dorado, Ms. Torres, and several of the others are fully aware of. There's been paperwork being floated from the governor's office all the way down to the local level. And still we hear nothing about our school being closed in these meetings. And I think that is deplorable. It should not happen. That's not how the school district should be run. And the administration knows that. So let's do better. Let's get on top of this and make this right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Matthews. You may now lower your hand. We're going to go back to Mr. Taj Powell. Mr. Powell, can you please unmute yourself? Can you hear us now? Mr. Powell? Mr. Powell, please unmute yourself. I'm not sure why he's having problems unmuting himself. We'll move on to the third public comment is from Ms. Mary Johnson. Mrs. Johnson, please raise your hands for IT department to designate you as a speaker for public comment. I'm not sure Mrs. Johnson is with us. She submitted a public comment, but I do not see her as an attendee. We'll move on to, is that the Zoom user? Not sure, Mrs. Johnson, is that you as a Zoom user? Can you unmute yourself to see this is you, Mrs. Mary Johnson? Unmute yourself, Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Mary Johnson, is that you? Mrs. Johnson? No. Okay, we will move on to the next public comment is from Monica McClellan. Mrs. McClellan, please raise your hands for ITD department and designate you as a speaker for public comments. I don't think she's with us. She submitted a public comment, but I do not see her as an attendee. Our fourth public comment is for Mr. John Hughes. Mr. Hughes, please raise your hands for IT department and designate you as a speaker for public comment. Mr. Hughes, can you unmute yourself? Can you hear us?
Yes.
You may now start with your 3 minutes public comment.
Yes. I'm going to echo what Ms. Matthews said regarding why we are so prevalent in our determination. I'll start with a proverb. An African proverb says that it is not the power of water, but persistence which cuts the stone. So we're not here, in essence, looking for some powerful person to convey upon us our rights. We're here to demand them as a community. And everything that has been said, we see constant avoidance, constant a lack of basic respect that would not be tolerated by any other community, and we certainly will not tolerate it as well. Dr. Eduardo, who is Dr. Torres's and everyone else's supervisor, needs to engage this community in the absence of Erica Torres. She needs to speak to this community as to why she wants them to just move on after being wrong for so long, without disclosing what has happened, without supporting. In the surveys that were mentioned in that LCAP, they spoke about the social emotional support. Well, we know that that is exacerbated at that campus, and we know that we had unfortunately had a young lady there who had a tragic event take place of an attempted suicide on that campus. But what's more alarming is the fact that the supervision that was lacking had been complained about by staff members and unaddressed by the administration. So that's upsetting. Of course, it's upsetting to me. We don't know what happens with our children. We don't know what goes through their mind, but we already experienced different experience, as was acknowledged by Dr. Gooseby. She said that the surveys rendered different answers depending on the school that they attended. Now, that should not be the case if you're executing what the mission says in Inglewood. So Warren Lane has a very legitimate complaint. So to close the school is akin to covering up a crime scene, a scene with crime tape, when you know these wrongs have occurred and you still do not address it, you ignore the community. But there comes a time when silence is betrayal, and that time is now. So this silence, this moving on, this not addressing the community, that day should be over today. You need to address us. Next week on the 29th, we will be there. So we expect to be addressed. Thank you.
And we will try one more time with Mr. Powell. I see him as an attendee. Mr. Powell, can you please raise your hands for IT department to let you in and unmute yourself? If you could hear us, not sure if you're having problem connecting. Mr. Powell, can you unmute yourself? Mr. Powell? I think he's having problems connecting. Dr. Kuna, that concludes our public comments for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Zambrano. Okay, moving on to item 10, reporting out of closed session actions. In closed session, the county administrator approved settlement number 07-201-2022 and rejected the following claim numbers. Number 2209141, number 2108719, number 2209340, number 2208961, and number 2209147. That'll bring us to item 11, our consent calendar action items. First up, we have item 11A, Human Resources Division. Does our board have any questions or comments regarding items 11A1 through 11A14?
We have no comments at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Being that there are no comments or questions, items 11A1 through 11A14 are each approved. Next up, 11B, Business Services Division. Moving on to item 11B, Business Services Division, does our board have any questions or comments regarding the items 11B1 through 11B9? Okay, being that there are
no questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Being that there are no comments or questions, items 11B1 through 11B9 are each approved. Next, we have 11C, Measure GG and Facilities. Does our board have any questions or comments regarding 11C1 through 11C2?
We have no comments at this time.
Okay, being that there are no comments or questions, items 11C1 through 11C2 are each approved. Next, we have item 11D, Educational Services Division. Does our board have any questions or comments regarding items 11D1 through 11D18?
We have no questions or comments at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Being that there are no comments or questions, items 11D1 through 11D18 are each approved. Next, we have item 11E, County Administrator. Does our board have any questions or comments regarding items 11E1 through 11E3?
No questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Being that there are no comments or questions, items 11E1 through 11E3 are each approved. That brings us to item 12, the approval of minutes. Moving on to, it's actually 12A and 12B, sorry. Approval of minutes. Does our board have any questions or comments regarding the minutes of the regular board meeting held on May 25th, 2022, and the special Board of Education meeting held on June 1st, 2022?
We move that the minutes be approved for A and B.
Very good. Since there are no comments or questions, the minutes of May 25th and the special minutes for the June 1st board meeting are approved. Item 13, board member remarks. If we can start with you, Ms. Evans.
And I always start with Ms. Hammonds.
Yes, a lot was accomplished tonight, and I'd like to congratulate all the presenters. It was a very informative meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Mr. Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Board President. Thank you for everyone who was able to work on those critical presentations for the community. June is a very important month for us as we review our budget and review our plan for the upcoming year. In terms of our strengths and weaknesses that we were displayed, there was a lot of strengths, a lot of successes that we have past year. And the weaknesses were glaring, but those weaknesses are not unique to our district. Enrollment is a problem throughout all school districts in the state, in the country. There's a shortage of teachers throughout the country as well too. So when it comes to public schools, we are all struggling, and Inglewood mostly because of our here. So just wanted to address that. And also when it comes to the Alcap survey results, a lot of the overlap between the parents and students were kind of glaring too, to see that they all kind of agreed on some of the weaknesses in our schools. So I think that was partly in goal 3. So hopefully by next year as a community, we're able to address these inefficiencies and really work on having a better relationship with the schools, teachers, parents, and the community at large. That's something I definitely want to be part of, and something we should all try to work in as we try to achieve goal 3 for next year. But Other than that, thank you everyone for this productive meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Board Vice President, Dr. Richardson McGee. Are you still with us, Dr. McGee? Okay, my last comments. First of all, I'm supposed to be in San Diego with the
Ms. Evans.
conference. Are you there? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to give my report for So-Called Rock as a part of my my board
Oh, your report.
comments.
Mhm.
Yes. So-Called Rock, we met on Thursday, May 19th at 6:30, and that meeting primarily was to go over our budget for 22-23 fiscal year. We also applied for a Chevron grant for $15,000 that will help assist a lot of the programs there at So-Called Rock. And we're just awaiting on the results of that submission. We also had a student, Jade Jimenez. They do a profile on students maybe every 2 or 3 months. And this story was done in the Torrance Today, and it was aired on Tuesday, May 10th. And it just featured one of the students that participates in the program. It's always something really nice to highlight some of the successes that the students participate in. They also had the Night of Stars that was held on May 18th at the Cheesecake Factory. Unfortunately, I was really, really sick and I lost my sister during that time. So I was not able to attend, but it's always a really nice opportunity to highlight the students that attend So-Called Rock. The years that I have participated, we've had very, very good representation from our school district for students that receive scholarships from the program. Also, So-Called Rock was awarded the Torrance Chamber of Commerce Award, and that award was presented on June 16th, and it was for the 2022 Legacy Award, and So-Called Rock was the recipient. And that's basically concludes my report. The next board meeting was canceled due to a lack of having a quorum. With that being said, I just want to say tonight's board meeting was always very informative. I want to thank Ms. Matthews, who spoke tonight with regards to Warren Lane. I have sat back very quietly to some extent because I needed to listen and hear what the community was really wanting. I think we have a very strong opportunity to work together, and I hope to see that. What I do not want to see is the disrespect. I have had individuals come to my home. I've had them see me in the bank or at the grocery store. We are not the enemy. And I want us to be able to have that level of civility respected. And that's all that I ask. I do this out of the goodness of wanting to be a good servant to our community and to support our teachers, our children, and our community. And it is unfortunate that when you see many of the board members, there is a visceral reaction to us. And I just want you to know that we are not the enemy. We are there working in conjunction to make it a better school district and a better day for our children. And I hope that you will give us an opportunity to work together. and not be so upset that you would come to my home or see me in the bank or the grocery store and just go off. It is not how we get things done. So I thank you for keeping up with the legislation. I too have been keeping up with AB 1912, and I think we have a strong opportunity. Inglewood is on the rise, and we can only rise together if we work together, and we must work together in a way in which there is respect. Those are my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. McGee. We have another board member, Mr. Brandon Myers.
Thank you, Press.
Your comments, please.
Thank you. Dr. McGee, I'm so sorry that you had to experience that. Me as an Inglewood resident and as a Black man, I want to apologize. I want to apologize for you feeling just violated. And it's not fair to you. It's not fair to anyone in our position. So I want to take that realm and say, I apologize for them, for their actions. It's not cool. Mr. McKee, I'm so sad that you are leaving. I love your energy, sir. Every time I go to Morningside, I see you yelling and doing whatever you're doing, which creates that positive energy. Last time I seen you was at the graduation, and we briefly passed, and still remaining with that energy. Miss Matthews, again, wonderful questions, wonderful comments this evening, as well as Mr. Hughes. We really appreciate you all calling in and giving us your ear and going back to the comments that were made. It just stems from, and this is a phrase that I've learned here at a conference that I attended. It's called Solution Roundtable. And with that Solution Roundtable, every one of our community members, including our district partners, are involved. And everybody has that inclusion at this roundtable. And there at that roundtable, we will be able to discuss a lot of these solutions, not the opposite side of, well, we have to do this, we have to close this, but what are the solutions to bring these innovative ideas and strategies to our community? So again, Solution Roundtable, let that echo. But Dr. Williams, I want to welcome you to the team. Mr. Nick Stephanie, welcome to the team as well. And I want you all to have a beautiful evening, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. And my condolences to Dr. McGee and to the Richardson family, first of all, for the loss of her sister. That happened when I was out of the country on vacation, and I found out about it while I was away. So on behalf of the board, I'd like to extend our condolences to your family. To all the comments that were made tonight, all of us got to see budget, the proposed budget, the things that we're going to have to do. As I said when I made my comments earlier, there are going to be some people that won't be happy if we have to make some cuts. It was clearly stated, if we want to remain solvent, there are some things that we have to do. And at this point, we are doing some of the things that we have to do, some of the things that FICMAT has told us that we must do if we want to remain solvent and if we ever want to get out of receivership. There are some things that we just have to do and some things we can't even control. So I hate to hear the things that Dr. McGee is encountering, and any board member, not just Dr. McGee, but all of us, because all of us go to the grocery store and all of us are known in our communities, and everybody has a question for all of us most of the time, or some of us anyway. But some of us have more information about certain schools than others, and some of us have the same information about Warren Lane, especially. So there are some things that we have no control over as board members. We're not paid to do this job. We do what we can do. We have input as much as we can, but to have to endure disrespect, that's not something that we should endure, whether we were paid or not. That's just my opinion about that. But as Mr. Myers has said, we're going to talk about, bringing everybody together. I don't hear from parents coming on these calls. Most of the people that I have heard have been from the community and who might not even have children in this school. We need to feel or hear from parents. How are you feeling about what's happening with your children? Where are you going to send your children to school next year? Are you going to keep them in Inglewood? Those are things that we have to talk about. We can't stand to lose any students. And hopefully we won't lose any of yours, because hopefully we've already made a plan for parents, these students who are going to be or would have been attending Warren Lane for next year. So we'll have more discussions, I'm sure, about meeting and in the weeks to come. But hopefully everybody will understand and get a better understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's not going to stop with just Warren Lane. I can tell you that now. When I looked at all those $1 million cuts that we're going to have to make from closing schools, that just did not include Warren Lane. So thank you all for your comments for tonight. Thank you for being on the call. I hope you enjoyed our Freedom Day this past Monday, and hopefully everybody had a peaceful Freedom Day and a good Father's Day to all the fathers that I didn't get to comment about last time. That you had a good Father's Day if you're fathers, and I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you at our meeting next week. Thank you.
Thank you, board members. We will move on to item 14, which is the county administrator remarks. I would like to say thank you again to all of you for giving of your time, your energy, your efforts. I do know that it is something that you do voluntarily, and you face the challenges that come with the role. And there's, it's a tough spot to be in. So I appreciate you sticking with us through all of these challenges and enduring a particularly long meeting today with a lot of stuff on the agenda. So thank you for your time again. But I do appreciate everything that you do for our students in our district. Thank you. Also, I wanted to just make sure that everybody's aware that the district is once again implementing the practice of a 410 work schedule for the district office classified employees. That was one of the items that was approved this evening with our union partners. And that means that the effective Monday, June 20th through Thursday, July 28th, the district's hours of operations will be Monday through Thursday from 7:30 a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. Normal hours will resume on Monday, August 1st. And just as a reminder, with the July 4th holiday, we will be closed on Monday. So thank you once again to all of our board members for being here this evening. That will lead us to item 15, which is our next meeting, which is the same time next week, next Wednesday, June 29th, 2022. As of now, that means our meeting will be adjourned at 7:30 p.m. I hope you all have a pleasant evening.